When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject: Funeral Home. User: Mr. Under T. Posted June 25, 1998.
I was raised in the family business. Never even considered doing nothing else. My grandfather started the place in the 1940s. My father took it over in the 60s, and by the time I came of age in the 1980s, it was just understood that I'd be the next one to hold the keys. Some folks inherit farms or restaurants or hardware stores. I inherited a building full of the quietest people on earth. It suited me fine. Death didn't bother me growing up. I used to help my dad wash the cars, vacuum the visitation rooms, replace the stiff little carnations that wilted under the fluorescent lights. It all felt normal, safe even. There's a steadiness to the work, rituals repeated, steps followed, families guided from one room to the next with soft voices and clean handkerchiefs offered at just the right moment. You learn early on that grief needs structure as much as compassion. But the part of the job I never expected, the part no one prepared me for, is how the dead talk. Not out loud, not the way the living do, but they talk. I didn't believe it myself until the first time it happened, and even then, I was halfway convinced I'd imagined it. It was 1984. I'd been running the place for a year after my old Uncle Mac finally retired. The funeral home still had that ugly green carpet in the viewing rooms and the faint smell of lemon polish no matter how often you aired out the halls. A woman named Alice McKenney had passed, peacefully in her sleep, and I was in the prep room washing her hands when I felt a thought brush the inside of my skull like a fingertip tapping a window. Tell Thomas it wasn't his fault. I stopped what I was doing, cloth suspended halfway up her arm. Nobody else was in the room. The air was still, the fluorescent lights humming faintly overhead. I thought maybe it was grief getting to me. Long days, not enough sleep, too much stillness, combined with too many emotions that weren't mine. But the thought came again, gentler this time. Tell him I never blamed him. Tell him to stop carrying what doesn't belong to him. Her face lay peaceful, composed. Nothing strange about her, nothing eerie or heavy. She just looked like someone with one last thing on her mind. So I told her son during the visitation, quietly, softly, in the tone you use when you're not sure how someone will take kindness. She wanted you to know she never held anything against you, I said. Not once. He cried so hard, I had to take him outside for air. After that, the boundary cracked open, not dramatically, no door slamming, no lights flickering, just a quiet, unmistakable shift. It's like standing in a house just before a storm rolls in. You feel the pressure change before you hear the thunder. The dead aren't loud, but they're not silent either. Some have no interest in speaking. Others, they have a little business left. Most of it ain't profound. People think last messages are full of regrets and revelations, but the truth is far, far simpler. Most just want the people they loved to know the little things. I loved her. Please don't sell my record player. Tell my sister the blue dress wasn't ruined. It just needed mending. One man insisted I tell his daughter to hide his baseball cards from the rest of the family, especially the mantle, he said. She'll know which one I mean. Another woman begged her husband not to forget to feed the cat twice a day because he'll pretend he forgot just so he can buy the cheap food. They're small messages, but small things carry weight. Then there are the ones who finally see their lives clearly for the first time. I once prepared a man named Gerald Sparks, factory foreman, strict as they come. While I buttoned his shirt, he said, "I worked that boy too hard. Thought I was teaching him how to be strong. I only taught him how to tire young." When I told his son, the man just sat there, staring at his father's hands folded neatly across his chest. And then he whispered, "I know, but I'm glad he said it." By the early 1990s, I'd settled into the rhythm of it. The world outside was getting noisier. Pagers chirping, fax machines clattering, car phones popping up in people's Buicks. But inside the funeral home, time moved slowly, like syrup dripping down the side of a bottle. Grief doesn't run on the same schedule as the rest of the world. In 1996, a man named Delacroix came to make arrangements for his wife, Margaret. He carried himself like the floor might crack under him if he stepped wrong. I guided him through the paperwork, the flowers, the little decisions that feel enormous when your world has just collapsed. When he left for the afternoon, I went to begin preparing Margaret. As soon as I touched her hand, I felt it. That shift in the air, like someone taking a breath in the corner of the room. "You won't sleep without the radio," she whispered inside my mind. "Tell him it's all right to leave it on. He'll stop feeling foolish eventually." Then, after a pause, "The roses, he thinks they were mine. They were his. Make sure he knows that." She didn't sound sad, just gently amused, the way someone does when she knows her partner better than he knows himself. I passed along the messages, and Mr. Delacroix did not look surprised, just relieved, as if he'd been hoping for permission to keep on living even though it felt wrong to start. People ask me sometimes, quietly inside rooms when they think no one else can hear, what the dead say about what comes next. The afterlife, heaven, the beyond, whatever you want to call it. I never give a dramatic answer. Mostly because the dead themselves aren't dramatic about it. One woman told me simply, "It's wide." Another said, "It don't hurt." A child, barely 5 when she passed, whispered, "I'm not scared anymore." Now, there are days when the weight of all those stories sits heavy on me. Days when the prep room feels full of memories that aren't mine, layered in the walls like dust. But most days, I am grateful. Not everyone gets to help the living and the dead at the same time. Grief rearranges people. And I've watched it for decades. It bends some, breaks others, transforms a few into something stronger than they ever expected. The dead, they don't ask for much. They don't cling. They don't really haunt. They just want the truth told. Not the big truth, but the small ones that mattered to them when breath still lived in their lungs.
Subject, the click. User, one Mrs. Behaving. Posted, February 11th, 1998.
I've never liked the noise the refrigerator makes. Even before everything fell apart, it had this steady hum that felt sharper than it should, like something in the house was trying to get my attention. After Mark disappeared, the sound didn't just feel louder, it felt deliberate. It threaded through my evenings, pushed into the quiet moments when I was trying to read or stare out the window or pretend I wasn't waiting for him to walk back through the door. The house itself joined in. The wood stretched and groaned, the pipes ticked after the water heater finished, passing cars sent stripes of light crawling slowly up the walls. Before he left, it all blended into the background. Now, every noise feels pointed, like the house is thinking out loud and I am the topic of conversation. The mug he always used still sits on the counter. I told the police I kept everything untouched so they could see the scene of his last morning, but that wasn't the truth. I kept the mug out because putting it away felt too final. It made it easier to pretend that any second he might come through the door, shrug his jacket onto the hook, and tell me about his day with that low, familiar sigh. He was meticulous in the kitchen, wiping the counters every night in neat circular motions before turning the light off with a quick flick of the wrist. That sound, sharp, decisive, has been lodged in my memory for years. The first time I heard it after he vanished, I thought I was losing my mind. I was stretched across the couch with a magazine I'd been pretending to read for an hour, letting the muted TV wash color across the room while my thoughts went places I couldn't follow. It was late, the kind of late where the world feels thin around the edges, and then, suddenly, there it was, the clean, unmistakable click of the kitchen light switch. I sat up, gripping the couch cushion. The doorway to the kitchen was a solid block of darkness. If a light had turned on or off, I would have seen a change in the shadows, but I heard the sound as clearly as if it'd been standing right there. I told myself houses make noises. Switch plates settle, plastic shifts. People under stress reach for explanations, but the click came again the next night at 12:21 in the morning. I'd been sitting at the table, tracing circles on the wood with my fingertip. When the click sliced through the quiet, my whole body tensed. This time, I walked to the kitchen doorway and stood there until my eyes adjusted enough to make out the faint outline of the counter, the sink, the mug still sitting in its place. That mug felt like an accusation sitting out in the open. I picked it up gingerly and turned it in my hands as if the ceramic might have something to say. Then I set it in the cabinet and whispered, I know what I did, even though admitting it to the air made my stomach twist. The clicks became routine, always at the same time, sometimes once, sometimes twice, spaced just far enough apart to make the silence feel intentional. Occasionally, I'd be brushing my teeth and hear it carried faintly through the hallway, like an echo traveling through the bones of the house. Sometimes I'd lie in bed, staring into the dark, and swear I felt the sound more than heard it. I did not tell the police about the noises. They already looked at me with too much care, like I was someone who might shatter. They came by often to ask the same questions. When did you last see him? Was he upset? Had there been problems in the marriage? Did he ever talk about leaving? I kept my voice even and gentle, the way wives on TV talk about missing husbands. I didn't mention the other woman. I didn't know who she was, just little clues. A restaurant receipt in his jacket pocket from a night he said he worked late. A faint perfume clinging to the collar of a shirt, a sudden interest in taking walks alone after dinner. Love makes you generous in the assumptions you make about someone. It wasn't until the pattern became undeniable that I felt the floor shift under my feet. That night, I didn't confront him. I stood in the kitchen long after dark, staring out the window at the backyard swing swaying in the wind. I imagined her face, her voice, the curve of her smile. Details I had no evidence for, but somehow they still hurt. He came home smelling faintly of shampoo that wasn't ours. He tossed his jacket onto the hook and didn't look at me long enough to register anything was wrong. I moved around him quietly, the way he moved around the kitchen, wiping, straightening, fitting pieces into place. The vase near the sink was heavy, thick glass with a narrow neck. I don't remember deciding to pick it up. I only remember the split second after, the thud that didn't sound anything like I'd expected, and the way his knees buckled before his hands even went up. People always imagine these things as violent, noisy, dramatic. They're not. They're terrifyingly quiet, shockingly easy. A human body can fail without ceremony. The garden was soft from weeks of summer rain. I remember that more clearly than anything. The dirt gave way easily under the spade. The only jarring sound was the scrape of metal against the concrete edging. Thin, sharp, and so vivid it still flicks through my mind at odd hours. Sometimes I hear it under the hum of the refrigerator, as if memory has its own pitch. Footsteps began a week after I buried him. At first, they were subtle, small shifts on the hallway boards outside my bedroom. Mark had a way of walking lightly when he was half asleep, almost gliding. When I heard that same cadence drifting down the hallway long after he'd disappeared, I sat upright in bed, breath caught in my throat. Steps paused, resumed, and then came right up to the edge of the mattress. The bed dipped as though someone had sat down. I stayed perfectly still, not out of fear, but something stranger. Recognition, maybe. Familiarity. I stared at the empty air beside me and, in a low voice, said, "You don't get to do this." The pressure eased, and the house fell silent. 2 mornings later, Detective Morales came by to check on me. He stood at the kitchen window, looking out at the yard. His eyes lingered on the patch of dirt near the fence where the grass hadn't grown back yet. He asked if I'd started a garden. I told him yes, though my voice cracked in a way I hoped he didn't catch. Something shifted in his posture, almost imperceptibly. "We might have a dog come out," he said. "Just routine." That word felt like a blade sliding between ribs. Dogs came the next day. I watched from the window as they crisscrossed the yard. One stopped exactly where I knew it would. Its tail stiffened, it barked twice, and just like that, everything began unraveling. Morales sat across from me at the station, arms folded, voice low. He didn't threaten or accuse. He simply said, "If there's something you need to tell me, now would be the time." And something inside me loosened. Something that had been wound too tightly for too long. I told him plainly, I killed him. No theatrics, no excuses, just the truth delivered in a voice that didn't sound quite like my own. And that night, in the holding cell, I expected silence. Instead, the footsteps followed me there. Soft, deliberate, familiar. They crossed the floor of the cell as surely as they crossed our hallway, and when everything else fell quiet, I heard the sound that had haunted me from the start, a clean, perfect click, as if someone had turned off the light for the night. Only this time, there was no house around me. The click was inside my head, right beside whatever piece of him refuses to stay buried.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.